All right, welcome to the Blacklisted Podcast.
You're not talking very loud.
Ah, fuck. This is going to be a long episode. Sorry if you have to turn up the volume on me, but we're going to give a quick little shout out to our sponsors, Training Box, for hosting us, Repair, Perform, Recover, and Hybrid Sport and Spine for taking care of all of our athletes. If you guys are in the Atlanta area, hit them up for any of your body work needs. They're two separate companies. They both do different things. Repair, Perform, Recover, great physical therapists, hybrid spine and sport, great chiropractic care and movement quality, movement quality work. Great Group Tactical for also sponsoring this podcast. They make great weight vests for fitness, and Zero FG Energy.
Adopt the mentality.
Adopt the mentality.
Is that their thing?
I'm not sure, but it sounds
No, it
good.
says live free.
I
on
thought
there.
say, damn, that's
Yeah, I'm going to
you
just
might
say
wanna
adopt
think
the
about that
mentality.
one.
I think it's better. I'm going to tell them that.
Okay. Well, they make an energy drink. You can drink it. Dan, what are we talking about today?
Grid athletes.
What about them?
How to be one. How to be good at one. How to be a good grid athlete.
had to be good at one.
Man, we're talking about grid is on the radar very well at the moment. There's a lot of cool data showcasing like how much its popularity has greatly increased. And maybe that's because we're going to Vegas in a few weeks. I don't know. Or it could just be Pat.
Did you say Pat?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he's a good-looking guy.
What's grid?
What is grid?
Just for the people who don't know.
It is a co-ed team sport that involves a race-based game of strategy and teamwork fulfilled by specialists.
Honestly, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's the straight-up definition from the website.
Yeah. Just go search Grid. What? Grid?
United Grid League.
United Grid League
Go
on
check
YouTube.
out the webpage. Yeah. Oh, the
You-
YouTube page would be better. You're right.
Yeah, and watch a match because if you watch a match, you'll understand how it works, and they explain it very well in the matches. Actually.
Oh yeah, they
So,
really do. No, in all seriousness though, like the main topic of conversation today is the grid athlete, but like how can a grid athlete succeed versus how can a grid athlete fail? You know, and what stereotypes, if you will, fall into each category, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean it does. So where do you want to start the conversation off then?
Well, I think in case there's people listening that don't fully know what it is, we should start off by talking about the specialties
So,
in the sport.
okay.
And
so
then
like
sorry.
prerequisite number one would be have a specialty to be a
yes
good
and no,
grid-
have a specialty or be above mediocre and everything.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're like, you know, a moderate or competitive level CrossFit athlete, like, how would you know if grid would be like good for you?
The things that you enjoy training are probably the things you're going to be good at in grid.
Like, if you really like doing,
If you like doing
the high
that,
skill gymnastics stuff and playing around your
Yeah.
hands and stuff like that, you probably
you'd be a
fit
good
well into
specialist there. Yep. So,
yeah.
as you guys know, there's the body weight, utility, and strength specialists, the specialties, if you will, in the sport. Now, I argue that those have branched off more categories. You have the pure strength specialist, the strength utility specialist, utility specialist, utility body weight specialist, and body weight specialist. And there's only a couple people that really fall into the like full-on pure utility specialist, and that would
Right.
be Griffin as an example there.
Yeah.
Okay, and RJ back before he was hurt,
Yeah.
right? And then there's a few other, like on the female side, Amanda's really close, missing some body weight element stuff, being really good at that. But like Sammy Nolly is honestly pretty good grid utility,
Yeah.
but she's missing some of the strength side of it
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
And that's not speaking shit. That's just honestly speaking
Right.
truth.
Well, I think one thing about grid that's nice is like you play to the athlete that you are, not
Exactly.
not to the athlete that you need to become for like. I think most people get their background from grid from CrossFit,
Of
where
course.
you're having to train things that are in the sport and become an athlete that you might not necessarily have been if you were just to train. You're now playing in a sport where you're training the athlete that you are.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And that's a perfect, like, I'm gonna say summary, but that's a great explanation to help like get the ball rolling in like this category specifically, because all in all, and obviously Pat, since you've been on the Wild since 2020, and Kyle, you've coached or programmed for two of the most successful grid athletes in the sport.
Yeah.
feel free to chime in a little differently with what I'm about to say. Because like you two, I would like to eventually give your perspectives on a lot of this more so than mine.
Yeah.
Just because I've been a part of the sport since 2015.
Right.
So the thing is with the athlete within those specialties, there's the ones that are very successful and the ones that fail.
Okay.
But the ones that fail are the ones that think they're being successful.
So what would you define as failure then for that?
Do you want me to be nice or mean?
No, just say it.
All right, well, egocentric, entitled,
Okay.
that type of mindset. The CrossFitter,
So
the one who
essentially-
thinks they need to do everything when grid's not a do everything sport.
So essentially, they're not as good as they think they are.
That's a big piece of it, but also they're really good at one thing and they've been picked up for one thing. And that's the hyper specialist, which
Yeah.
is the most important role
Right.
on a grid team.
Right.
And if people don't agree with me on that, I would love to have a debate because compare your data to mine,
Okay.
and we'll have a debate. But
nerdiest
like it's
thing.
the thing that I should be in this because I'm working really hard to be better at it type
Yeah,
of deal,
okay,
or
okay,
I
okay.
should be in this because
Right.
I don't think that I'm acceptable like only as a specialty athlete.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'll give two examples of our last match. Tom Soroka came down to only do the flipper. He drove 9.5 hours to Tampa to only do the flipper. David McKellar flew from upstate New York to do 4 overhead squats. Now, Tom got faulted, questionable fault, and I've talked to Cody about that. And it's going to be a agree to disagree type
Yeah,
of scenario.
yeah.
But David's 4 overhead squats, it came down to him performing a half a second faster,
Right.
and we won that relay
Right.
by half
right,
a second.
Right.
Right. Now, there's a lot leading up to it, but those
Yeah.
4 overhead squats were the most important component,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously, for that sprint relay.
Right. Right.
So essentially, you're saying like humility is important
Very.
for the athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah. If,
Yeah.
if you're not a team-minded individual, and really a lot of, speaking from a bell curve standpoint, if you've not been in a team-based sport before, you're going to fall into that category more than likely. There are outliers of being the failure, quote unquote, at grid as an athlete. Uncoachable at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah. And I think too, it's more of like an objective-based mindset that you need to have. for grid,
Absolutely.
is like, how do we accomplish this work the fastest and the cleanest? Because you can't take no reps. You guys can go back and watch your guys' match too soon.
No,
for
not
that,
at all.
But like you need to be the cleanest and you need to be the fastest. And so like ultimately, how does the team do that, and who is in best position to do that on the team? And there's a lot. There's honestly like old CrossFit team of 6. There's a lot of carryover to that because it was such a power-based sport, just like grid is. So it's kind of if you come from that era, you have a lot of just similar mindsets, and I think that's actually why you saw grid start to blow up back in 2014, the
Yeah.
original grid,
Yeah.
because Team of 6 was so popular back then, and you had a lot of team athletes
Okay.
that went over to grid from CrossFit.
Really? Right, yeah, that's basically like, Roderick Holloway.
Yep.
Uh,
Kelly.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot.
yeah,
Kelly, Danny
yeah.
Spender, Eric Cardona,
who was the guy from OPT at the time?
Danny Nichols.
Yes.
Marcus Philly.
Yeah.
Those two. Okay.
Yeah.
Danny
So, I mean,
Nichols was the best grid athlete out there.
and he was great. I think he went team one year and they crushed
Yeah.
it. So, and it's just you also need to be like a little bit more of a higher power athlete.
Okay.
Even with some of the gymnastic stuff that you're having to do, if that makes sense. So
Makes
it's
complete sense.
it's a higher power gymnastics output, rather than an endurance aspect like CrossFit is. So I actually, it would be interesting to see if high-level CrossFit athletes would actually be super great individual high-level CrossFit athletes, if they would be super great at grid or not, because it is such an explosive sport especially at this point in time.
Do you want to talk?
I think it's an
How it
aspect
used to
actually
be?
from CrossFit that's like kind of missing.
So, can
Yeah.
you say that again, Pat? I interrupted what you were saying. Can you say
Oh,
that
it's
again,
okay.
please?
I think that like I mean, this is a little bit biased, but that like really explosive output, like high output, is missing from like the testing pool of CrossFit's
Yeah, for sure.
methodology essentially. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think it is missing.
Yeah, I mean, I've run a couple like data points on Castro's stuff and Boz's stuff in regards to athlete profile and who makes it to the games.
And it's like that.
Yeah, so like
Really?
Dave Castro was like, I'll just reference the females specifically in this. He was like a 5'5" female with 135 pounds, I think was what it was. And then Boz's year was 5'7" female, 165 pounds, I think was the skeleton athlete. So obviously any time that you increase the height and increase the weight, to an extent, we're not trying to get NBA basketball players out there, but you're also going to increase your power output. Mass moves mass. That's like a well-known statement. And so with CrossFit, you have a lot more endurance profiles, going back to kind of Dave Castro's skeleton, because a shorter athlete creates less power output per rep of movement. They're moving the bar less. If you take a 5'8" guy and a 6-foot guy, the 6-foot guy has to move the bar more. His power output is going to be higher in a squat, no matter what. So you're creating more of an endurance profile with Castro's programming, and then Boz's started to shift a little bit more towards a little bit more power output, but it wasn't absolute power output. You still, I think the shortest workout they had at semifinals was still like a 3:45-ish minute workout.
Even a burpee.
The
output's way different.
Everything.
The output for me to do a burpee is way different than someone who's 5'8" doing a burpee.
I think there was a Instagram page, CrossFit Analytics. I don't know if they're still around or not, but they took Brent Fikowski. So back when they did Mary at the games, they took the average power output for Brent Fikowski to do a pull-up based off of his body weight, and the average body weight and arm length and stuff like that. I don't know how they calculated his arm length, and they calculated Noah's, and Brent Fikowski's was like ridiculously higher for an actual pull-up.
I believe it.
So you're just looking at a kind of just a completely different athlete that plays grid to CrossFit in regards to just overall power output. They can express that power output now.
That's perfect. I think the three of us are on the same wavelength there, because that's a magnificent opportunity to talk about the differences between those two athletes.
Yeah.
So I'm going to list out like some of the high-level performers in grid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm talking like, I'm going to start from a utility standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you have Amanda, right? Talked about her already. Considered one, correct me if I'm wrong, but considered one of the strongest or stronger on the female side CrossFit athletes.
Yeah, I mean, she held the third heaviest clean and jerk at a CrossFit competition ever.
There you go. Then I would strongly argue that Amanda would be considered top 5 strongest athletes in the world in CrossFit at least semifinal at games level category. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So then you have Griffin, who at one time was considered the strongest all-around CrossFit Games athlete. Okay. Does that still stand? I don't know. I don't know 100% of the data when it comes to that type of output.
Yeah.
But there's obviously something limiting for him to make it to the games individually, right?
Right.
And that's, you talk about the team component of it. Griffin's more in the team aspect anyway.
Right.
Okay, so now you have those two high-level CrossFitters that are top tier, like best in the league, unless it's a popularity contest of voting, the best in the league from a utility standpoint. Now, introduce Nick Shappy. Nick Shappy is a utility dude. He can do all of the body weight stuff minus like backward shoulder supports, toe to ring, back up rise, whatever, right? And I'm not including RJ right now because RJ compared to Nick from a pistol squat standpoint or an explosiveness out of the hole standpoint for anything Olympic lifting is nigh comparable at the moment just because of ailments that RJ suffered. Okay? Nick is probably the next to Griffin on the dude side and maybe a few others, arguably the single most explosive individual on one leg. No one's faster than him in pistols. No one. And you put him under a barbell or under kettlebells or the dumbbells, he's the fastest squatter as well. But he can't sustain that for like games level. But his output his sustainability of the output is longer
Yeah.
than most of the grid athletes.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that, Pat? Since you've been on the team with him you were on the team with him for 3 years.
I think he's extremely explosive.
Yep.
But I don't think he expresses it well under heavy load.
Okay, talk about that for a second, because you have my
But I don't know if
curiosity.
that's a mobility issue or not.
So when you say heavy load, are you talking like?
I actually think that's a tension related thing.
Right.
Okay.
Like
So he's able to express his capacity super well in body weight movements where there isn't required to have a lot of tension.
or like a moderate barbell, like him
Yeah.
doing those thrusters at
Right.
95
Dude,
pounds.
oh my God.
I've never seen someone
So
do
fast.
He did 50,
No, he didn't do 50. He did
25?
20. He did 20.
He did
And
20 thrusters
dude,
at 95 in like
Probably 30 seconds.
maybe.
It was fucking
No,
fast.
No, it was like 20 seconds.
yeah.
'Cause
So
he's so fucking fast at driving out
Yeah.
and then pulling the bar back down.
yeah. So he has good. He's got good joint laxity to be able to use that stretch reflex, but what he's lacking is the tension to be able to create good joint tension to move a moderate bar whenever it gets to X percentage of his 1RMs.
I got you. Okay.
So like he can move a pistol really fast because he's pretty much just using stretch reflex the entire time. And then when it comes to like a weighted barbell, there's some sort of tension related thing that's probably causing him to slow down too much on the bar.
Yeah. Okay. So
And
yeah, sorry.
to
That makes
caveat
sense.
off of that, honestly, Dan, is there's actually a difference between like when we start getting into like body weight specialists and talking about explosive power. Somebody who is a little bit smaller of an individual, like body weight, Sam Tovar is probably a great example of this. They can express a lot more power inside of a gymnastics movement just because of their anthropometrics. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense. And so
But he's not.
that makes
but,
sense to us. But like, give a couple
But
examples.
Sam's not going to be great at moving a barbell super fast.
Right,
At,
so-
like the back squat workout, for example, at 315.
Sure,
Like he
yeah,
could do
makes
that,
sense.
but he couldn't move it fast. But he
Right.
can move his body much more explosively than somebody like Griffin can, who is it's like a inverse of the utility specialist, if that makes sense.
It makes complete sense to me. Is there an easy example that doesn't involve, like, let's use something that you use the barbell. So like Nick is actually really good at legless rope climbs.
Yeah,
Very explosive and fast,
Yeah.
as is Griffin.
yeah,
Sam is about a second faster to 3 seconds faster after 3 reps.
okay, yeah.
Whereas
so,
like him and Griffin also the exact same.
Yeah.
Nick would be trailing by just a touch. So
yeah.
So you said the barbell.
Yeah,
Talk about that.
so with that, now you actually are starting to get into a little bit of CrossFit type stuff with like the power
Okay.
output,
Yeah, yeah.
where like Griffin's going to have a degradation of his speed faster because he is putting in more power to something like a
Mm-hmm.
legless rope climb.
From a body weight, because their
From-
body weight's higher or what?
Right.
Okay.
Where Sam is going to be able to sustain higher power output for longer because his body weight is smaller. And that's kind of that power output metric that you're measuring. So Sam will be able to sustain. He will be able to have more endurance for them. And it's not like we're telling people like, oh, you don't have to have endurance for grid. There is an endurance component to grid,
Yes.
but it's more of like a shorter end range power endurance that you're looking to train. Inside, it's like a 3 to 30 seconds, and then sometimes you need to get like the almost like a CrossFit specialist for the triad to sustain out to like 3 minutes and then repeat that again.
That makes sense.
That aerobic power.
Yeah.
It's really like that low end of the aerobic power.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
right.
aerobic power is considered anything to like up to 10 minutes.
It's like
sometimes,
3 to
Yeah.
10. I've seen stuff I think that even gets it out to like 20 minutes too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's typically like 3 to 10, and then you're on the lower end range of that
Yeah.
for sure.
So we honed in on the dude side of it. And I want to kind of do the same thing on the female side if you guys are down for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll start with just the utility aspect, right? Amanda, utility specialist. Couple things missing from a bodyweight standpoint compared to like Paula Leas, okay,
Who's like a body weight.
like hyper bodyweight specialist, who like you put her and Eric Cardona out there on Jack and Jill, no one's beating him. It just
Okay.
objectively speaking, no one's gonna do it,
Yeah.
right? Like Eric's strength side of things is pretty decent.
Mhm.
He's like a 265 or 270 snatch
Mhm.
for a 4'9" little guy. He's not that little.
Yeah.
Love you, Eric.
Damn.
Hobbit.
I love Eric to death. He's fantastic.
He's a
But
good dude.
like, so similar thing, like on the female side, like if you were to pair Amanda to Paula, yes, same type of, the barbell example you gave with Sam, same type of deal, anthropometrically, even though Amanda, how tall are you?
5'7".
Amanda's 5'7", Paula's like 5'4", 5'3",
Yeah.
I think. So taking those two into consideration, the output for like under a barbell or any type of load versus body weight, similar to like the Sam and Nick thing or different because of the female side?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, same.
Think the same thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Is there anything associated, like similar with what you said with like Nick and Sam, of any aspect of it all, with like Amanda and Paula, that it could be labeled like something different, like i.e. rope climbs, legless rope climbs type of deal?
I do actually think that it is beneficial for females. Beneficial for females to be a little bit stronger and have a little bit more muscle mass on the grid side of things. Just because typically, if a female's like training body weight stuff, they're not hypertrophying as much as like a male would.
What type of strength do you think? Because this is a genuine question from me.
Yeah.
What type of strength, and do you specifically mean like strength development only on the female side? And so, like, what type of strength and where? What parts of body, I guess?
Oh yeah, like I mean, I would say upper body predominantly, just because like women have less upper body muscle mass than men because they don't have pecs, right?
Well, they do.
Well, they do. Yeah, they do, but they're not. They also have boobs.
They're nice pecs.
Yeah. So I think like having a little bit more upper body mass for females is super beneficial, and it will help them with their gymnastics as well. So, obviously, there's like a point of no return with that. Like if you do get a gymnastics specialist, like you don't want them like hitting hypertrophy protocols 24/7 and like like being literally a ball of muscle. But I think it is a little bit harder for most females to hypertrophy, especially in their upper body. So if you have somebody who is training hypertrophy protocols, it actually helps them out with their power output.
I would agree fully, Pat.
Yeah. Sounds legit
All right.
to me.
Nothing to add from the dissident side.
No.
Cool.
I will say Sam, I think
Is this Sam Tovar?
Sam
or-
Tovar,
Yeah.
when he first started,
He's a little string bean.
well, he could barely snatch 155.
Yeah.
And he just snatched 225 doing the dissident
Hell yeah.
cycle. So
Dude,
Congrats, Sam.
he
Okay.
keeps throwing his head back though, and it's annoying me. Sam,
About to cut it off.
Honestly,
how
with,
that shit.
with the people's names that we're mentioning, and like maybe not all of them, but I mean, going to encourage the listener, keep that in mind for the next part of this topic, the next part of this podcast, because there's some pretty cool shit associated with it that you're gonna. I'm leaving a cliffhanger there.
Is that a segue into the next part of this
Nope,
podcast?
not at all. So,
Okay.
so like, look, I feel like this is laid down and fantastic. Like we talked about, like the type of athlete that's like I'll say like a failure, right? And a type of athlete that's like a success. We use some specific examples.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so all of that honestly is a segue into like the specialties that I talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5 specialists, if you will, like the successful athlete accepts the fact that they are a pure strength. They'll be utilized for very little. Okay, the utility strength, I would put like Amanda in that category.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, utility strength can do the more intricate bodyweight movements, triple touches, double touches, the front forward rolls on the rings, the burpee back. God damn it, what's it called? The burpee over bar, burpee pull over thing. Like,
Yeah.
So burpee pull over, and obviously ring muscle ups, med ball ring muscle ups as well. The pure utility, they're just going to probably be the type of people that are in the match the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're utility strength, utility body weight, you're most likely going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like utility body weight would be more like the RJ side of things,
Mm-hmm.
or the carry, the Vilma,
Yeah.
like for
yeah.
us specifically,
Right.
or for some others, just Sammy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then obviously pure body weight. We're talking about like the Sam Tovars,
Yeah.
the
Tyler.
ninjas, right? Tyler.
Yeah.
So even though Did you know Tyler can like almost hit the 4th bar in the clean ladder?
Yeah, he's got
Like, no shit.
really strong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he has. So like
Hell yeah.
an athlete, in your guys' opinion, based on everything we just said, in order for an athlete to fail within those specialties, how would they go about doing that?
You want to take this one?
I mean, failure is a weird word to me.
All right, so what word would you find to be more appropriate there?
like,
I view failure as like you fucked your job up for the team.
like yeah, if you're like, I would say if you said you can, I think you have to be realistic about what you can do, and I feel like I can only relate this to myself. I can't really use anybody as an example.
That's fine. You're an athlete on the grid floor and have been for years. So.
Anytime I've ever been, you've asked me to do something that I know I can't do, I've been like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm never, even if I want to do that thing, and it'd be really cool to do that in a race, I'm always very clear with you where it's like, I don't, like, I'll try. I'll do my best, right?
Yeah.
But I, like, can't promise you I'm going to crush it. You know what I mean? So I was like,
Yeah.
if you know someone's better, put that person in, dude, because I
Thank you
guarantee-
for saying that.
But you know what I mean? But I always say that to you before every match. I'm always like, hey, like, I'll do it. I'll do whatever you need me to do. But, like, if there is somebody better, by all fucking means, put that person in because I don't want to screw the team over.
Humility.
Humility. But I really do think that is the most important thing about the sport because that's what it's all about.
It's
like,
reality.
Hey, I'm here if you need me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if someone's
well,
better.
And two, like if you fuck up a rep, get a no rep, can't do the number of reps that you said you can do, which like there's obviously compounding fatigue in a match.
Shit happens.
Shit happens.
Like everyone can make
But if
Coaching
you-
errors.
But if you're out there and you're like, oh yeah, I for sure can hit 5, and you come down after 1 or 2 reps of something,
You better have gotten hurt.
you just fuck. Well, like you were saying that you could do it, you couldn't. You just fucked your team for that whole
Yeah.
match. So it's like
right.
being realistic with where you're at,
Yeah.
and like to caveat off of what you say is like the matches are so fast and so short, or the races, like you have to be so fine tuned into what you're capable of if you're genuinely a team player.
Yeah.
Yes.
And-
So well said, honestly.
And honestly, my first year at AS1, I remember everything I was doing in grid for those at least first 2 years. Everything was like riding the line of my abilities.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm past that where
You can do pretty much anything that we needed to put you in, minus the
might not be the
hybrid
fast,
gymnastic stuff.
Right, might not be the fastest, but I can do pretty much everything.
Yeah.
If someone get, like what happened to Blake. Blake
Yeah.
got
damn.
a frickin' whatever, and Griffin was out, so I had to do all their shit. And then, like, I'm not as fast as either of them on anything, but
You
I-
still did it
I could-
within a
I
few
could-
seconds of them.
could do it, right? So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't remember what I
Or
was
last year
talking
against
about.
the or another one in your case last year against the Aces in partner forward when RJ fucked his knee and you had to be in the pistol stick jump overs with
yeah.
Carrie.
That was great. I should never. Yeah, whatever.
We didn't
Uh,
fucking didn't have anybody.
Yeah, but what I was saying is like, I was on the team, but everything I was doing was riding that line of my abilities. Like, I think the first thing I did was that in grid was that mirror of thrusters at 195. It
Yeah.
was 10,
No, we only had 8 at
was
that
8.
point. Yeah.
but I had never done. In practice, I had done the most I'd ever done was 7 at 185, and I kept failing. I couldn't do more than 7 at 185. And when it was game time and you threw me in there, you have to do it, and I
You did it.
blocked out and did it.
That same match you also did 5 touch and go clusters at 205.
Oh yeah, with Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's where I started to love grid because I was like, damn, I like 10-pound, 1 rep PR on something I had attempted in training over and over again.
Yeah.
And just freaking blacked out and did it,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was crazy to me.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I think
Mm.
that brings up another point though. Is like you also have to step up to the plate when your number's called as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
like even if you
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
even if you're not thinking you're capable of something, if you guys watch basketball, like the Miami Heat, they call it Heat culture. It's literally they pull these guys from the fucking G League, and they come out and they play so hard, and they like make the playoffs. They have these crazy playoff runs with people who you're like, they're an okay basketball player at the NBA level, but it's because their mentality is always you step up into the role that you're given, regardless of if you think you're capable of it or not. You go out there and you give your best effort and you play hard through that.
Right.
And that's kind of like another thing that you need to have in regard, like it's almost on the opposite end of the spectrum, is even if you don't think you're capable of something, going out there and stepping up into that role of whatever it is you're asking them to do.
That's honestly fucking awesome, Pat. I'll let you continue here.
I do
all right, go ahead.
I think this goes into something that's important too. Is like, you told me after my first season, and I never believed it, but you always said I was a performance athlete and not a
training athlete
or a testing athlete. And that I think that always I think that's really important to know about yourself, is if you are a performance athlete or not. Because for me, to be honest, I know that I don't really need to test a lot of things. For me, I don't need to test to know that I can do it. I know that when I show up to Vegas, I'm going to be able to do whatever 10 times faster than I ever will try in training, no matter how much pre-workout or whatever I take. I just know that about myself. Like
that's as well have cocaine in Vegas.
Yeah. But I just know that when it's 3, 2, 1 race, I'm 100%. I'm going like blackout.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be faster.
Yeah.
What is it they say in the Marines? Click off safe, some shit like that.
I don't know.
They click off safe, and then like people die, type of deal. So it's like equating that to athletes. That mode, click off safe and fucking go.
But I think people know. But I just think people know if they have that or not.
Yeah.
Because some people need a lot of time.
Yeah.
Preparing.
You should definitely know if you have it or not.
Yeah.
Within 1 to 2 competitions.
Yes.
Right.
Do agree.
And it's always reflected with me. I'm going to stop talking about myself, but
it's okay, man. You're an athlete on a team. It's okay.
Well, in the Open and quarterfinals, all the online competitions, to me, that just feels like training.
Yeah,
I'm
100%.
I'm never able to fully express my ability, I guess.
Yeah,
But when I go compete in person, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm fit again.
And I think we honestly have a lot of athletes in our organization that are like that, though.
Yeah.
Is where like our biggest motto when I competed on the team with Amanda, our motto was literally just get us there. Like, just get us there and we're going to fucking perform.
Totally.
And I think when we went and competed at TFX, we finished in 9th place in the online qualifier and then sat 2nd place on the podium.
Yeah.
So it's like we have a bunch, and that's kind of like what we try and instill in people. You guys can watch the video that we just put out and read the quote that we talked about for our training on, what's the date today? September 14th. But that's kind of like the mindset that we try and instill in people, is to become performance-based athletes. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't be training hard, because the harder you train, the higher your level of performance is going to be out on the competition floor. Yep. But you should know that you have an extra gear, because you're not going to limit yourself mentally when you go out onto the competition floor.
Yeah.
My favorite mantra for grid is always, it sounds crazy, but I always say my body is a vessel. I said this to Amanda one time, and she thought I was crazy, and it didn't help at all, because I was trying to help her with a thing. But it did end up helping a little bit. But I always think my body is a vessel. It means nothing that happens to my body matters.
Yeah.
And it's just containing, I'm inside of it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know how to describe it, but like, I will set myself on fire.
Yeah.
Like, nothing that, like, you can blow me up. Like,
to accomplish the goal, you'll do whatever
like
it takes.
My body is just a vessel. It means nothing.
Yeah.
And my,
I got you. What you're talking about is called Attack on Titan. It's an anime and a manga.
We can't do this.
Honestly, though, that is legitimately like, Pat, I'm following what you're saying personally because of that manga and anime.
Yeah.
Like, no shit. I get what you mean.
That's been my secret.
Like, this has been amazing, because that organically went from like the athlete that's considered, that can be like, how does an athlete fail at grid? How can they not be good? And a lot of it was mentality. I agree 100% with both of you. And it segued itself organically into like what's needed to be a successful athlete. Yeah. Minus a couple things that there's one major thing as a coach in the sport I would argue that wasn't hit on, that it was said but it wasn't, but like being fucking coachable
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
trusting, like
But that, I mean, that goes for every
oh,
sport.
100%
right?
it does, right? But
Totally.
like, so I'm gonna argue, and I'm gonna spark a little debate here. Having been a coach in grid, the quote unquote pro level in 2016, with the biggest fucking names in CrossFit at the time, Nick Urankar, Travis Williams, Marcus Philly, Danny Nichols,
Sarah Sigma's
Jen
daughter.
Jones. Sarah wasn't a part of it, actually.
Just kidding.
Yeah. But Annie Thor's daughter.
Oh, maybe it was Annie
the
that I was
fucking,
thinking.
I could keep going down the
Yeah,
goddamn
yeah.
list. But coachable in grid, I would strongly argue, is very different than most sports. However, I've never actually seen like the coachability, if you will, of like NBA athletes or NFL athletes. However, watching documentaries on them and whatnot, those mindsets of those who are coachable are already there. They're already present. Whereas like grid is still an amateur sport.
Yeah.
Right. And it's genuinely
what you're saying.
teetering on leveling up to like very, very low pro levels. So hold on one sec.
Yeah.
So as a coach in this sport since 2016, every single player on the team is a coach already,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
However, the ones that are the most successful in the sport are the ones that say, hey, dude, just tell me what to fucking do, I'll go do it, right?
Yeah.
So my argument there then is when, met with the athlete that quote-unquote fails at the sport, maybe even segue some of the athletes that are quote-unquote successful in the sport, I believe that you have to be a different type of coachable in grid in order to be successful in grid. Does that statement make any sense at all?
Well, I mean, what do you mean by? Can you give an example of what you mean?
Yes. Okay, Griffin and Amanda, two of the best athletes in grid.
Yeah.
Like, obviously.
Right.
They never question anything that I do unless it genuinely does not make sense from a data standpoint or like a common sense standpoint of it. Because, like, look, we all have those errors
Yeah,
in our
yeah,
coaching,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're humans.
Right.
So the ability to objectively look at everything and then approach the coach like, hey, dog, this doesn't make sense because of A, B, and C. Oh, yeah, you're right. I was blinded by the fact that I missed like the rule book, or someone has a certain twinge in their elbow, or like, something silly, or something that doesn't make sense from a substitution standpoint or whatever. Like being able to approach that way, like putting what's something, Pat, help me with my memory here. I put Amanda in something, I think it was the deficit handstand push-ups in a triad, where she said, I would
Right.
prefer not do them, but if I need to, I have to. Like that type of coachability is what you hit on already. And instead of like, Dan, this doesn't make sense, fuck you, I'm not going to do it or whatever, or Dan, I haven't been training, I got to do it, or someone else stepping in like, well, I did it, I should be in there type of deal.
Right.
The egocentric side of shit, that part of grid is more difficult to coach
I would agree.
if the
yeah.
athlete's not coachable in a grid mindset.
I don't know if like coachability is the right term.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Then let's
see
go
what
with a
you're-
different term
I
then.
see what you're saying,
All right, go ahead.
because like Amanda did not want to do those freaking deficit handstand push-ups. But there's a lot of times where like a good athlete like that, her or Griffin or somebody, will be like, they'll know they're not doing something and they don't want to do X, but game time, they end up having to do it and do not hesitate to pick up those extra reps or whatever they have to do. I've seen examples of that for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's the only thing that came to mind. But
I
fair.
think what you're hitting on is like that heat culture mentality where it's next man up, and you just go and do your shit,
I think
regardless of
that is part of it, yeah.
regardless of if you want to or not.
All right, how
the
about
s- The
this?
second guessing and the questioning is
That's-
really the main
yeah.
thing that you were trying to like.
Yes, that's
Okay,
what I'm
okay.
more getting at.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
the second guessing
Well,
and questioning
okay,
from
so-
a coach, quote unquote,
Yeah.
coachability standpoint,
yeah,
like
yeah.
from the grid coaching
Yeah, yeah.
standpoint.
Yeah.
That's a really
Yeah,
big
so-
battle that has to be
So
overcome.
I think you have that in every sport,
Of course.
but if you look at professional sports, they have a peewee, they have a middle school, they have a high school, they have a collegiate level, they have a semi-professional level for most of them, and then they have a professional
Right.
level. So if you're playing at the professional level, you've had 5 opportunities to weed yourself out of that competition. And the individuals that are unsure and second guess themselves and aren't confident in their abilities weed themselves out before they even touch the competition floor. It's the individuals that are at the competition floor on the professional level that have all the right tools to compete at that level. So when you're looking at sports like CrossFit and grid, fucking probably pickleball, very
Just for right now, because it's infancy. It's infant.
it hasn't developed the ability to weed people out yet, because it hasn't set itself up in the same structure that
Right,
all these other sports
There
have.
aren't levels to it,
Right.
really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Besides, like, I'm a quarterfinals athlete. I'm
And
a semis
It's all
athlete.
individual.
And all you have to do for that is literally work out in your home gym. There's no
Yeah.
adversity that you're facing.
No.
Like, you have your entire support system around you. So like, you can have somebody who performs really well in their environment,
Yeah.
but then when they come to an unknown environment, they're like, "Well, what the fuck's going on?"
Yeah.
And they get shell shock and they don't perform well.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, in most professional sports, that athlete would have weeded themselves out because they're not performing out on the competition floor, and
Yeah.
they would have not made a team. They would have been cut, or
Yeah.
they would have had seen less playing time and eventually just either figured it out or got bored and quit. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's more so what you're alluding to, is just the infancy of the sport and not having the levels that it weeds some of those individuals out.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Makes complete sense, and that's
Yeah.
fair. And it's to be short-lived.
Hopefully.
Very much, hopefully. I'm not gonna go any further than that.
I'll be I'll be honest. It's because like I get where you're like. There's a lot of athletes like that in CrossFit because it is a little bit more of like a hobby sport, and that's kind of like what if you don't get lucky and you get like the games level athlete right off the bat, then you get instant fame and success, and then you're like you're coaching these like high level performers where you're now problem solving to figure out the best solution for them to perform better. What they might need in training, etc. You're doing a lot of mindset coaching with individuals and like trying to get them to the point where they're like confident in their abilities. And it can be tough and like it can wear on you for sure. And it's like, a lot of times I think coaches get into the coaching sport for CrossFit and grid and stuff like that to be on the technical side of things. Where like if you look at a lot of professional coaches, they get to be on the technical side of things.
What do you mean by technical?
Like in grid, like how do you run out to your barbell specifically? Like what kind of training do you need to do to be able to do that? Like what macrocycles, microcycles, all this shit.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, you still have to be good with people and figure out how to motivate them and push them to to be their best. That's what a great coach does. But you're not necessarily holding their hand trying to get them to the point where they believe in themselves anymore or second guess themselves. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So like that's kind of like the difference in where like what we're doing right now as coaches and like a professional like NFL head coach. Does that kind of make sense?
Absolutely. And hold on to the thoughts about like what we're doing associated with that just for right now.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you were about to say something, Pat? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say I think that's the confidence in your abilities is the hardest thing to develop for a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And I think exposure therapy sometimes is the best way to get that.
You're talking about like just going out and doing shit, basically.
Methodically, or do you mean like?
Or just competing and
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
constantly testing yourself.
Gotcha. On the competition floor.
Yeah.
That definitely works for some people.
But it can also be
like
bad. It
yeah.
can also go the opposite
Yeah.
for sure. And
For sure.
I've seen it go the opposite
Yeah.
way. But I mean, I had no confidence my first 2 years of
True.
grid in I told you I couldn't do fucking everything.
You were very
basically.
individually minded though back then because you were presented a challenge to join the Army, right? And you had gotten out at that point when during the AS one. Like you've been very challenged to like overcome shit in your past, just like most crazy people. I mean that in confident with as a compliment.
I gotcha.
Okay. Go ahead.
I just think stress is good. Like I think exposing yourself to stuff that you don't necessarily like is good. Like I don't like the pressure of grid,
Right.
but I think
Yeah.
it's developed my confidence and fearlessness way more than if I had have just been like, no, this is too stressful for me. I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
That's really well said.
And that's why I've kept doing it, is because I like the effect that it has, where I keep doing something that's kind of scary and putting me out of my comfort zone.
What is it Huberman would say? Do you getting those hits of dopamine?
Afterwards, for
Yeah.
sure. yeah. But I think it transfers over to life and other things. I just like the effect it has, but I don't like the build up. But
Wait a minute. You mean team sports help build character?
yeah.
I think all sports help build
Well,
character.
yes, I was.
Yeah, if you're open to
But
it,
if you're
for
also
sure.
but if you're also dosed with stress in the right manner.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I think a lot of issues that people are getting in some of these amateur sports right now is they're getting dosed with too high a level of stress, and they're not.
It's fair.
Like if you're playing a sport from an infant, right, or toddler, toddler? I don't even, adolescent, whatever.
Yeah.
Like at the very beginning, like you're in the
Like
sport
you're
as you're
peewee
developing.
sports,
Got it.
like you're getting those doses of stress because like
Mhm.
at t-ball is fun, right? Like
Yeah,
it's not
it's not stressful.
it's not stressful. And then you go to coach pitch where they're trying to set you up for success with them underhanding the ball to you in baseball, right? Or like you're playing on 8-foot rims in basketball for peewees. And then you're gradually building into that sport where like grid, it's like, hey, you're pretty good. You learned these triple touches really, really fast.
Yeah.
Or like, how to do back handsprings. Like, have you ever thought about doing grid? And then you bring them to a fitness convention and they're like, I'm supposed to do what for how long? With how many people watching
Yeah.
me? Like,
Right.
Thrown into the fire straight
yeah,
up.
right. And like, they maybe, I don't know, maybe that person did have some, or maybe, maybe they might have come from a tricking background like Tanner, right?
Yeah.
But you just get thrown into the fire, I think, too quickly with a lot of these amateur sports, and you haven't had the ability to develop some of the competitive nature of
Fair enough.
some of these things.
And like I think a lot of people have an issue like channeling that pressure
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
into, because like Griffin tells me he always like feels like throwing up before every match. I always tell we did the questionnaire for what's your pregame ritual, and
Yep.
I said vomiting and diarrhea,
Yep.
and I'm not even kidding. I'm so stressed. Like we're all so stressed out, can't eat
Yeah.
anything, whatever.
Yeah.
But like some people can channel it into adrenaline, and my body's a fucking
Click off
vessel.
safe.
Fuck everybody, let's
Right.
go.
Yeah.
And then some people, I think, it gets to them, and they are not able to fully like use it.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of it
Um,
comes down to
The John Jones thing.
Yeah,
Always
Yeah,
talked
that's
about.
fair.
John Jones always
Yeah.
talked about that, and that kind of a bad thing. But that's why he used to party the night before his UFC fights, because he wanted to put more pressure on himself the day of the fight. Like, I partied all night. I'm gonna have to fight as hard as I can to beat this guy who's been
That's so
training.
cool to identify
And
that.
that was John Jones' crazy ass mindset, but he was just using
Yeah,
all of those
yeah.
nerves and all of like, oh my god, I drank so much last night, and this guy's, doesn't drink, he's clean, like whatever, blah blah, and like I have to put out 10 times more than him in this fight in order to beat him.
I really like that.
It's just
honestly.
like channeling those nerves into to like an extreme, I
Yeah,
guess.
I honestly really like that because I see that happen in swimming all the time. Really do. Like, oh, I'm so tired, I'm not gonna do well, so I have to go fast. So I'll just like have some fun with it. Motherfucker, you just won nationals. Like, oh, how about that? Little different, right?
Yeah.
Little different side of it. Like, it does fall in the same category of like channeling the stress in a certain manner.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
why I don't like the word failure.
So, what word would you use instead?
I don't know. Like,
I would use like defocused. Like,
Okay.
I think you're like what you're referring to, like with individuals that are like egotistical. I think is one thing, and you're not. It's not that you're going to fail at the sport. Like you might be really good at the job that you're doing, so like you could have some success there, but you're not going to succeed as a teammate in the
There
sport.
we go. Yeah.
yeah.
And then when it comes to like performance anxiety or underperforming or just like handling the nerves of performance, typically that's you're focusing in on the wrong thing. So like
Mhm.
you're focusing in on the negative, you're focusing in on what could go wrong, and then like how that's going to make you be perceived. Honestly, it's a little bit egotistical because you're so wrapped up in what you think other people are going to think of you,
Mhm.
rather than channeling it to, okay, this is how I'm going to execute in this, and I'm going to get that adrenaline dump is going to help me to do my 5 triple touches or 10 unbroken med ball ring muscle ups, and then envisioning yourself over and over and over again, completing that 10 unbroken ring muscle ups with the med ball.
Yep.
What it's going to feel like, that literally down to the sounds of people around you. Where's your teammate going to be when you're coming down off the rings? Like, that is what you need to channel your focus into.
Yeah.
And you're only envisioning success. And if you have something where, like, you're envisioning it and all of a sudden you fuck something up and you're like, oh, I came down early, or, oh, my arms blew up. In your thought process of you doing those ring muscle ups, it can happen. You could start completely over, and you go and you reimagine yourself doing the 10 reps
Yep.
to completion. And I think that's where, like, some people let the focus come back around to them, and they don't let they don't bring the focus back to, how do I do my best? And I'm
Right.
going to envision myself doing my best.
Yeah, I love visualization. Is so
That is
important.
something I've done for every match, competition, whatever.
Hell yeah.
Not for every single thing, but actually last weekend I did that for the clean and jerk I had to hit because you only had one attempt after 315.
Didn't you win that?
Yeah, but when I was sitting waiting for everyone to lift, I just kept imagining myself hitting the bar.
Yeah.
Every time. I ran
that's
that
fucking
clean and
sick.
jerk.
That's really sick.
I just ran that clean and jerk through my head the whole way while everyone was going. I wasn't paying attention to anybody else. I was just thinking.
And how long were you doing that for? 5, 10 minutes?
Probably
something
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So you just hit 20 successful reps at 345 before you even went out to the bar.
Yeah, and I don't even remember it
Yeah.
when it happened. But
We should
Or
have an
20
episode.
minutes of successful
We
reps.
should have an episode in the future about visualization before execution.
But the burpee ring touches is something that I actually do that with every time.
I believe that.
Without
yeah.
even, because I only practiced them one time
Yes, you
a
did.
year.
Oh, really?
I don't touch it more than once.
No
I
shit?
Yeah. I do it one time good. I'll do like a couple practice reps, and then I'll do the full thing, and it's good, and I'm like, all right, cool, done. And then the rest of it
That's
is just
awesome.
in my mind. Because it's not that I don't need to do it more.
True. It's not something to be
that-
trained
Right.
from an output standpoint, especially for you,
yeah,
the best person in the league at the burpee ring touch.
I just see it as like, yeah, it's different than a lot of the other elements where you can just.
Yes.
I feel like visualization for that specific thing is good.
I would agree fully with you because, Pat, you're the only person next to Daryl. Daryl's the McNeil, the tall, lanky black dude on the Aces.
Oh yeah.
He's
yeah.
the only dude in the league next to you
Yeah.
that has done that perfectly. Like
Yeah.
everyone else throughout the history of grid having that element in there, including in PGL, every other athlete has fucked that up.
Yeah. I always also, I think an important thing for grid is I would never try to get a no rep ever, right? You always want the best reps, blah, blah. But, like, I always expect 2 no reps for everything I do. Just so that when it happens, I don't even think about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially for the ring touch, because you'll get a no rep even if you did touch it a lot.
Yeah, we know.
So, right. And it's happened to me so many times where I just barely graze that thing and I get a no rep and I'm like, well, and then
You're just on to the next one.
you don't even think about it.
Have you been faulted in that before?
Yeah.
Really?
When
Haters.
I did them against the doubleheader in Orlando
Last year?
last year. I got 2 no reps
Really?
at the beginning and the end of my set, but it was
I'll have to go back and watch that.
like my first or second one, and I think my pinky or some part of my finger touched it, and I got a no rep, and I was like, motherfucker, dude. But it didn't matter because I know I can do like 20 of those.
Well, that and you were already so far ahead. Of it, yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Where?
But
What?
yeah.
What question were we on?
We've already essentially answered it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what? Because if I wanted to be on a grid team, like if I wasn't, and I was like a CrossFitter who wanted to do grid, what kind of like metrics? Let's say I wanted to be a utility specialist or a utility player. Like what kind of metrics should I try to look for to be able to be good enough to be on a grid team. So, like, do I need to be able to do, 5 double touches, unbroken, fast? Like, do I need to be able to clear the ladders? Like, what? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, if
Yeah,
I
I know
were
100%
gonna
what
try
you
to
mean.
train
So foundationally,
Yeah.
speaking as like your coach on the grid floor,
like basics.
yeah. So foundationally, 5 to 7 reps of double touches, 2 to 5 reps of triple touches, 1 to 3 reps of the triple touch complex, like grid elements that separate grid from like CrossFit, right? And
Yeah.
understanding that in the sport of grid, squat reps start at the bottom,
Yeah.
not at the top. So 1 rep in CrossFit is top, bottom, top. 1 rep in grid is bottom, top.
Yeah. So familiarizing yourself with the rules
Yep,
and the
that's-
standards is one.
Yep.
And then like being able to do kind of the basic grid gymnastic stuff.
We say basic grid. I would say. All right, that's fair. That's fair. Like movements that you see predominantly grid athletes do, like those ones they just
Well,
listed
I,
off,
I
right?
only
Yes.
say basic because, like, for example, Amanda can do like triple touches.
She
and
can
stuff
do
like
all of
that,
them.
but
Yeah.
not back up rises. And I would say like back
Yeah,
up
so
rises.
like
and
back
those
up
things would be
rises,
more
yeah.
like-
So hyper gymnastic specialists, back up rises, backwards roll to supports. Give me something else here. Burpee backflips.
right. Yeah.
I think sorry, just to categorize this a little bit more. I think if you're looking to get into the sport, you need to first like watch a match and see which athlete subset type you
Matches
match up
yeah.
with. So like if you're like,
Yes.
oh, the barbell, I really like the barbell. Okay, do you match up with an athlete that's lifting the bar? If you're like a fucking hoss of a human being and you see Matt Cable out there like just hossing barbells, you're like, that could be me,
Yeah.
right? Like you're probably looking at, clearing ladders, right?
Yeah.
But if you're like, you watch Griffin, you're like, damn, he's really strong and he's doing all these crazy gymnastic stuff. Like, okay, now you're what do you call it, a utility specialist?
He's a pure utility
Pure
specialist.
utility specialist. So it's like you need to be able to do everything in grid.
Literally everything.
Literally everything in grid. So I
Because he
think
can
that's-
do literally everything
yeah,
in grid
so-
if he wanted to.
Yeah, so I think that's the first step is just figuring out what type of athlete you match up best with. And like you might have a gymnastics background and see somebody like Sam or Sammy or I don't know some of the other gymnastics.
Well, Eric Cardona.
Eric Cardona,
Yeah.
Carrie even like be
Yeah.
like, oh, like, those look like things that I could do or master.
Yeah.
Then it's like figuring out what the the requisites are for that, and even going out and just testing some of the stuff that's in the matches, like the 10 freestanding handstand push-ups, for
Yep.
example, or
That is one that is becoming foundational.
yeah,
Obviously, because like it's in CrossFit
Right,
now, right? Or
right.
it has been past what, couple years.
yeah,
Like that is something that would be included
yeah,
in that. So basically, body weight for sure, and then like barbell cycling, like mirror. You
Yeah,
need to
the
test
mirror
your
stuff.
ability in the mirror. You need to and like you have, in order for yourself to like to want to be the answer to your question, Pat. A foundational awareness, like familiarize yourself with what looks good, what you think you're good at. I actually had this conversation with Devin not too long ago. And then you got to compare yourself. You got to do the due diligence and compare yourself
yeah,
and get splits on your own,
yeah,
right? Until the book becomes purchasable with what I provide, since I have every single split of every single player in every single match, every single fucking element.
I was just gonna
from
ask
21
you,
to 23.
Can we start setting up something where we like? I mean, honestly, also like reach out. Like, if you're looking to get into grid, reach out to us so that we can help you.
Yes.
Because like,
Well,
we have like Dan said, we have all the data points. We have a strong base knowledge of all the athletes competing and playing in the sport.
shit.
That was smooth, Dan.
That's the next topic, by the way.
So
To like
oh,
the
well,
summary.
we're wrapping this
well,
up. So
Well, this is a good wrap up.
Yeah,
Honestly, it's
yeah.
short.
But like I think like honestly just like reaching out to us and asking questions, getting involved in the sport, like we'll send you guys some testers of things that we think would be appropriate for you to test based off of the type of athlete that you think you are. And we can give you feedback on those scores, whether
Yep.
we think you might be good at the sport or not, stuff to work on. Like we coach grid athletes. They don't do grid year round. They do other things that help them get better at
Yeah.
grid. You know, some people CrossFit, some people just get strong, some people do a bunch of hypertrophy work. So, you know, if that is something that you're interested in getting into, like, honestly, if you're a CrossFitter, you're gonna have to develop explosive ability. So, like, that will be one huge thing that you're working on if you're wanting to get in on the sport. But yeah, I think the big thing is just reaching out. One, watch the sport, figure out what you would like to do in the sport, or what you match up best to do athletic wise, and then two, just reach out to us and we'll be able to answer some questions and help you out.
I want to, if I may, I want to say quickly as to why you just said all of that associated or affiliated with Blacklisted. Can I?
I don't care.
Like, speaking as a coach in the sport, since the Blacklisted athlete has started integrating itself into grid, the athletes that give a little bit of fear to the coaches, that make the other players nervous, have been at one time or currently still are associated with us. With Blacklisted. So, like, as I've written down here, like, the data on the Blacklisted athletes in the grid and their impact currently is very high. So, like, listeners, viewers, whatever, I told you I've been a part of this sport since 2016, 2015, previous year. I have never met people who are more capable to program to get you good at grid. Never met anybody more capable other than Kyle, Pat, and Griffin. And I'm putting myself in that category. Like, you three have, you and Griffin first, no offense, Pat.
None taken.
Like, you and Griffin first, you two have, you're the catalyst for people getting good at this sport. And being associated with Blacklisted because of the mindset aspect that you all talked about. And, like, if the athlete struggles to, like, comprehend that mindset piece that Blacklisted provides, they're not going to be with Blacklisted for very long.
Right.
Or they will fucking develop.
I
I mean, as of right now, the people have been developing instead of just being little bitches and quitting.
I mean, we had, I think, 6 people for the first time today do 30 ring muscle ups in a workout.
That's fucking amazing.
I mean, I PR'd my 30 for time. Amanda PR'd her 30.
Caroline did 30. Liana did 30. Sydney did 30. Amy Quinton texted me and she did 30. Dylan did 30.
Dylan did 30.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we had a bunch of people that.
And that test alone, no shit, transfers directly into grid performance for like bodyweight elements for utility and bodyweight specialty.
Yeah.
So, like, this is why listeners, viewers, like, this is a major thing to end with on the podcast, is for them to reach out to you all. Because, like, if grid is, like, on the big uprise.
The back uprise.
Haha.
Sick.
So I wanted to say that piece. It's important to me. Sign up with Pat, Griff, or Kyle to get good at this fucking sport.
Cool.
Because teams need good players. I need good players.
I mean, honestly, we just need to elevate the level of play in the sport in general. So, and get more eyes on it.
True. I mean, Sam Tovar, like, he's always been, like, one that creates, like, some trembles in his ability. And that boy in the first match was terrifying to watch. If I were
gotten so much better,
dude, if I were the aces in that first match watching Sam at the floor, I'd be like, oh fuck, we need to go.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed that episode on grid. You guys have anything else, or?
No, I'm good. Yeah,
cool.
Not at all.
Sweet. Thanks for listening, guys.
Adopt the mentality.
Yeah, please like and subscribe if you're still listening. Doubt it.
Jesus Christ, dude.
Well, we'll catch you guys next time.